Hey everybody, this is me, the Undead Viking. I want to talk to you about this game. It is called Coliseum. Now this is the old Days of Wonder version. I know there's a brand new spanking one coming out very soon. But with the impending Kickstarter, I looked at this on my shelf and I said, hey, you know, I never did a review of this. And this is a game I've played many times. Actually, but I haven't played in a long time, actually. So I broke it open, I refreshed myself on the rules. Hopefully I don't screw them up. I'm going to go ahead and talk about this game. It's a game I've played a lot of. It's one of those rare games that has remained in my collection that has been played well over a couple of dozen times. So let me go ahead and show you how Colosseum rolls, and then we'll come back here and I'll talk a little bit more about this game, and kind of like it's got a little story for me as far as its history, and then we'll talk a little more about that and the game itself. Alright, cool, let's do this. Alright, I've set up a 5-player game of Colosseum. I'm going to go over the basic phases of the game and kind of talk about some of the mechanisms. I'm not going to step into every single nuance of every single rule that's going to be available to you, mostly because this game has been around for a while and there are lots of resources out there. You can go and read the rules online and stuff like that if that interests you. But I hope to give you, like I said, a pretty good overview of how this game is played. So I've gone ahead and set up 5 players. You know it's 5 players because there are 5 of these arenas set up. You might see these pawns in these different locations. Those are the different like noblemen that you will be trying to convince to come to your Colosseum to see the performance that you're going to put on. Now, but you don't actually, these aren't your pawns. Those, I mean, usually when you play a game, like you see like these little meeple things or whatever, you think those are your people. No, those are just place setters for the different, like, important guests, if you will, that you're going to be trying to get to land within your particular Colosseum for the event that you're going to perform, because then they're going to their basic presence is going to increase the number of visitors or number of paid attendees, if you will, so that'll increase the score that you'll get for that particular event that you put on. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So the game lasts through 5 phases. And at the beginning of the game, what happens is that each person is going to get 2 events that they can put on, and the events will have these little tokens on, like these little icons on them. So like these are 2 gladiators and 2 horses. And if you put the race of Janus on, you will get 9 points for doing so. Basic of 9, and then you can get bonuses for certain things. If you are missing one of the things that you need, say like you only have 1 horse, you could put this on, but then you only get 7 points. And if you like were missing both horses, you could put it on, but then you only get 5 points, and you can see it goes down to 3. So you don't have to have every single thing, but obviously if you do, then you're going to get more points. And then also, like, each person gets 2 tiles to start with. You're going to get 1 tile that has 1 through 5 through it, and 1 tile that has 6 through 10. And then here we have the last of the Samnites, and so here we have, it's a little bit more. There's 5 things here instead of 4, so it's going to be worth 11 points. And then again, we have some different icons here. We have, you know, like the arches there, and also a goblet, if you will. Now, also, at the beginning of the game, you're going to be handed 5 of these tokens. These are things, these are resources, things that you have at your disposal already because of the fact that you already are putting into it. So we already got 2 of our gladiators. We actually already have a horse. So somehow if we can get a hold of another horse, we'd be able to do the race of Janus that we have here. Now it's important to note that as you put on events, you have to start slow and work your way up. So like you can do the 4 and then you can do the 7, but you can't do the 7 and then go back to do the 4. You always got to put on bigger and better events, if you will. So keep that in mind, because later on you're going to be getting even larger events that you're going to be able to try to put on in your Colosseum. So the very first turn, what you're going to do is it's called investing. And to invest, you can do one of 4 things. You can do one of these actions. Now, there actually is a rule that if you actually get a hold of enough Emperor medals, which are these particular tokens, they look like this on one side, and they look like this on the other side. If you can get a hold of 2 of these, then you flip them over, and that allows you to do an extra action. But you know, just keep that in mind. You might be saying, how do I get a hold of these? You get a hold of them. You'll notice that each one of these little emperors and noblemen, what have you, senators, they have these little resting spaces. And if you can get one of those to land on a resting space as you're moving them around the middle of the board, you will actually then get one of these Emperor tokens. And the Emperor tokens can also be used when you do put on an event. You can use it to have, you know, another 3 people show up worth another 3 points. You can turn them in for 6 coins, or you can actually use it to move any one of the noblemen backwards or forwards 1 to 3 spaces if you have it. So those are things that you can grab as you're playing the game if you're able to get these particular people to land on any of these resting spaces. But anyway, so when you're doing the investment, normally you can only do 1 investment. And what you'll be doing is you'll be buying a new event. You have these 2 very large stacks of events that, like, here's like a bigger one, and I just dropped a bunch, but it doesn't matter. And here's like another one. So like, and once again, remember, you have to go constantly climbing up as far as the number. So, you know, you could buy, say, like the 14, but that means that you can never buy the 11, 12, and 13. Now, when you buy these, you can just go through the stack and pick whichever one you want, and you buy it, and that's just an event that you can possibly put on. The cost for the event to purchase it is obviously the little coins over here, and also you'll notice that there's this little diagram here. It says that your Coliseum has to be that size before you can put on that particular show or event, if you will. Now you might be saying, well, how do I make my Coliseum bigger? Well, glad you asked. You have these 2 little expansion tiles, and during the investment phase, you have the option of going ahead and putting them in your Coliseum to make them larger, like so. And these cost 10 coins to do that. And that's all you do. You just put it in the middle, and you can expand it either way. It doesn't matter where they start off. And so if, for example, let's say, I'm going to remove this and put it back on here, like so. So if you had a situation like this, where, and then like this nobleman was there, and you expanded, like so, you would actually then, he wouldn't move. He wouldn't get kicked out of there. He would actually like become part of that little spot, and so then he would be part of your setup, if you will. So that's one of the things you can do during your investment. You can also do what's called purchasing a season ticket. You can purchase one of these, and as long as these are available, there's a limited number of these tokens, but you can then put that in your Coliseum, and then basically that's plus 5 attendees. You know, it's guaranteed people because they have a season pass. They're going to always show up for what you're doing on. And also you can do what's called constructing an Emperor's Lodge, and that is this little tile, as you can see. And this does is like you put it on there, and basically that's like obviously a really nice place that like all the senators and noblemen and emperor want to come and visit your Colosseum. And when you place that in there, when you roll to see, and that's something I'm going to show you in a little bit, when you roll you move one of these pawns, you get 2 dice instead of 1 die if you have that. So all of those things are very important, but you only have 5 rounds, so you might want to kind of consider which one is the most important to you. This is one of those fantastic things where you never seem to have enough time to do the things that you want, and I love games like this because it helps you have tough decisions. So each person will do that phase. So the first person does it in phase 1, the next person does it in phase 2. You know, and so, I'm sorry, not phase 2, like the second person does phase 1, third person does phase 1, and so on and so forth, until everybody's done phase 1. And once everybody's done phase 1, the first player then goes on to phase 2. Now phase 2 is called acquiring your asset tokens. These are the asset tokens that you have here. And you might have seen that there are these asset tokens also in the middle here, in these little pavilions, if you will. And those are the places that you can buy those asset tokens. Now, what you do on your turn is, if you are the person it's your turn, you're going to pick one of these 5. And, or unless you can pass as well, but normally you're going to pick one. And you're going to set up a bid. And so the minimum bid for any of them is 8. You're going to say, so like, you know, I need another horse, you know, for, so I can do, you know, my race of Janus. And so like, I would pick one that has a horse. So let's say, this one's kind of diversified, so I'll pick that one. I'll say, I bid 8 on that. Then the person on my left goes, I bid 9, I bid 10, and so on and so forth, and it goes around the table. Now, if somebody then like passes, they're out for that bid. So it goes back and forth until finally one person is left and they have the amount. Now obviously the money and everything is open knowledge in this game. So you start with 30 coins and you earn coins for putting on your events. So you can kind of, like game the game a little bit there, like kind of judging what you think other people are willing to pay for things. You can see, which types of things that they need. You can see the actual these tokens. All the information is completely open. It isn't hidden. So you can always kind of gamble and kind of guess what other people are going to be going for. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, if the person, say like I said I'm going to bid 8 on this, but somebody else outbid me and they took it, and so that's gone. Now, it's still my turn. Because of the fact that I have to say I want to bid on something else. So now maybe I'll say, okay, I'll bid 8 on that one. And it goes all the way around, and that one, I lose that one as well. So now, you're not refilling these because of the fact that the person that is starting to bid, hasn't won one. So now finally I say, I'll go for that one. I want that one because I need, this little arch eventually. And I win that one. So I win that one, and now it'll go to the next person on their turn. But what happens before that ever happens is that you're going to go ahead, you have this tile bag basically, and you're going to take brand new tiles that you're going to place in each of these locations to see what they have. That's an interesting tile that automatically earns you one of the emperor. One of these particular, I flipped it over, one of those automatically, which gives you those extra actions. So that's kind of an interesting tile right there that you can get. So that it isn't always like an asset token for putting on a show. So you just refill those after the bidding, and you'll do that for each bidding phase. And it obviously is quite possible that more than one person, you could win more than one as long as you have the money to pay for the things that you're bidding for. Some of you might have noticed that there is this particular asset token that showed up, and what that does is when you if you earn that one, and remember you get all 3. When you win the bank, you don't just pick one out of the 3, you grab all 3. That then will get you an automatic Emperor's Medal like that. That's what that is worth if you manage to get that. So now, after everybody has collected their asset tokens, you move on to phase 3, and that is the trading of event asset tokens. Now, here is where you can wheel and deal with the other players. If you got assets that you don't need, like I got chariots or something that I don't need, but somebody has chariots, then you can start saying, I'll give you a chariot for a horse, or I'll give you a chariot for 5 gold, or I'll give you a chariot and a gladiator for 8 gold and your goblet, or whatever. So that is an open like negotiation. Each person gets a chance to like say this is what I want, and then talk to everybody at the table and try to convince them. You try to do it isn't like a free for all, if you will. You try to do it kind of orderly, and also you can't like say I'll do this for you and then next turn you do this for me. It has to be immediately taken care of so you can't backstab each other with the trade. And also the only thing you can trade is money and asset tokens. You can't trade anything else. You can't say, well, I bought this season pass, it's on my Coliseum, I'll give you that if you give me this. You can't do that. It's only asset tokens and money that can be traded. So now you go to the producing an event, and this is where you actually are going to, you're going to put on your events, your shows, if you will, and earn points. And so the first step you're going to do is, you're going to roll a die or roll 2 dice if you have the Emperor's Lodge, which I showed you, and you're going to roll a die, and then when you roll the die, you're going to pick one of these pawns, and you're going to move them the number of spaces that's on there. Now, there's a 1, 2, 3, and 4, and there's also a side that says this, 1, 2, or 3. That means that you can move 1, 2, or 3 spaces. If you have 2 dice, you can move two of the nobles if you want, or you can move 1 noble, the full amount that's on the dice, if you wish. And so I apologize, it is 1 through 5 that's on there. So you can then, after you've moved them, then you will produce your event. So when you produce your event, you do exactly what I just said. You just pick which one you're going to do. You show the assets that you're going to use, and if you have a full amount or don't have the full amount, you show the assets that you're using for that particular event, and then you will determine how many people actually then go to that particular event. Now remember, if you move one of these people in your Coliseum, that's going to be worth something. And if you move one of these pawns onto a resting space, that's going to earn you those Emperor tokens. So both things are good for you if you manage to move these pawns to the right place. The thing is, multiple pawns can exist on multiple spaces. There is not a limit to the number of token pawns that can be on a single spot. There's nothing that prohibits. They don't like push each other back or forth. You just are always on. You can be in the same spot as all of them can be in one spot if you wish. Now, to determine how many spectators that come to your event, you will look, as I said, on the event and like count. So like if I had both gladiators and both horses, I would get 9 to start with. Then you start adding in the different factors. Now, if you have one of either an emperor, a consul, or a senator in the spots like viewing your particular event, you get 7 extra spectators for a senator, you get 5 extra spectators for each consul, and you get 3 extra spectators for each senator. If you have VIP seating, you get +5 to the location. If you have one of the star performer tiles, I'll explain how you get those in just a moment. If you have one of the star performer tiles, you can see that they have +4 on those. That's going to add +4 to the spectators. If you decide to play metal, you can use that for an extra +3 spectators for each one that you play. You can play, if you have like 5 of them, you can play all 5 if you wish. You then also, if this is like say like for example, like you had already done one prior, each event that you did prior to the one that you do earns you another 5 spectators because people keep coming to you because you like continue to produce good events. You'll get an extra bonus of 5 for those. And finally, and though I haven't shown you how you earn those, if you have these little podiums, which I'll explain in just a moment as well, you'll get another +3 for those. So once you figure out the total amount of your spectators, and this is kind of the tricky thing with scoring, as long as you have, and this is the first turn, so you would. So let's just say we just had the 9, and we had the Emperor there, so that would be 16 points. So since the first turn, you'd get 16, so let's just take the blue one here and put that right there on 16 points. But in later turns, if you put on another event, and say that event earns like 27 spectators, you don't add 16 to 27 for the total. You go ahead and just go to 27. You just go to the next highest possible score. If you didn't like best your score from a previous turn, you aren't going to move your point total up. It doesn't go down, but it won't go up. I kind of dig that. I dig that scoring aspect of the game because like you were so used to just like, keep adding up the points, and go around the thing. But no, in this case, you don't do that. It's just if you best the score, the number of spectators you had at the event prior to the one that you just put on, then you get more points. But in this case, like you just wouldn't if you get less. So however many spectators you had attend your event, you then earn the exact same amount of money. You still earn the money even if it was less than the amount. So like let's say, like I said, like we were at 27 and we had a 25 score for our event. We wouldn't get any more points, but we'd still get 25 gold coins or what have you that you could spend on your next turn's investments and bidding and so forth. So you can keep the money coming in. Then whoever is the top scorer, like whoever has the highest score, they then earn this little tile, and you can earn it in consecutive turns. Now, it might not be the person that had the best event on that particular turn because of the fact that it's just whoever has the highest score presently at the end of that turn. Then after you do the event cleanup, and what you do then is you have to lose one of the assets that you use to put on your event. You know, it's just like it's attrition. You know, like one of the horses, you know, died, or a gladiator died, or what have you, and you have to lose one of those assets, and you then discard that. It doesn't go back in the bag or anything. You just discard it off to the side, and then you're gonna have to if you need it, you're gonna have to bid and get more of them on the next turn. Then at the very end, whoever is in the last space, like last place, like they then ask the person that is in first place, and they ask for an asset, and that person then has to give them one of their assets as kind of like a catch-up mechanism to help out the like poorest event planner, if you will. So then you're going to continue this on each, for every turn you're going to do it. You're going to go through the whole process until you finally get to the end, and then obviously whoever has the most points will win the game at that point. Now, I did mention there was a couple of things that I wanted to talk to you about. The big thing was that how do you earn these particular bonus tiles that like give you the +4 because you have like a famous performer. You earn that by having 3 or more tiles of the designated tiles. So you had 3 or more tiles of the gladiator, you then gain that. If you had 3 or more lions, 3 or more comedians, whatever, you earn that tile. If somebody then ends up getting more of those tiles, then they would take the tile for you. But if they equal it, if they have the exact same amount as you, they don't. They actually have to better it. If for whatever reason, if you should lose the tile, like let's say you had 4 and another person had 4, but you had 4 gladiators, but you decided to discard your gladiator asset after putting on an event, then you would lose that in situations as well. So somebody was better than you. So you can lose it by losing assets as well. So that explains that. So, I mean, this game, well, it's kind of a funny game because of the fact that, like, it's been out for a long time, and this game was a game that I owned way back in the day when I first really got into board gaming. And this game was one of those games that really surprised me for a lot of different reasons. It surprised me because of the theme and then the actual gameplay, if you will. I was expecting this to be, it's about Colosseums, and it's about gladiators and chariot races and things like that. And I was expecting this game to be kind of like a bloodbath game where you actually had gladiators, fighting each other and what have you. But it was actually, as you can see, like a very well-crafted Euro game instead. So, I mean, not only did this game surprise me, but it was a game that kind of eluded me for a long time as well. But let me tell you that story when I talk to you in my conclusion. Alright, thank you very much for sitting through that. I'm sure I screwed up a rule or two. I do apologize. Like I said, I haven't played the game in probably, I'm going to guess 10 or 11 months since the last time I had a FloodCon, which is my own little personal gaming convention that I put on in Fargo, North Dakota once or twice a year. And I remember I brought that as kind of like, well, what the heck, I'll bring this along kind of thing. And then somebody asked me to play it since it's been out of print for quite a long time. Now, as I said, that's the Days of Wonder version. I do know that the Tasty Minstrel Games version is going to be put in Kickstarter here shortly or fairly soon. Let me tell you a quick story. Well, actually, it won't be quick because it's me. But when I got into the whole board game world and doing reviews and what have you, I got into it when there was a deal a day board game website called Posy.com, and they had asked me to do reviews for them. And so when I did reviews, they would send me games that I do reviews of, and Coliseum was one of the games that I got sent. And it was in a stack of games that I got sent, and then the Posy.com website shut down. And so I had this game. I didn't really have a place to do the review or anything like that. And that was before I really ever got a hold of Board Game Geek. And I was writing reviews back then. I wasn't actually, doing the video thing like I do now. So, it was one of those things where it was on my shelf, and I played it a bunch. And I remember, like, it was a very common game. It had a lot of copies out there. Days of Wonder, promoted it really well, and it was a very well-respected game, from a very well-respected team of designers. And but here's the deal. So, like, when I heard about Colosseum, like, I was like, oh, Coliseum, and like when I grew up, I played a game called, and I'm gonna blank on it. It's right above here, and I could look, but I can't. Circus Imperium. No, it was. All right, I'm gonna look. And of course now it probably isn't there, even though I've seen it like 100 or dozens of times or whatever. I'm not gonna be able to remember the name of it, and I'm not seeing it right now. Um, was it? I think it was Circus Imperium actually. It was a game from a smaller company that was a chariot game where you whipped these beasts and you went around, and it was like kind of a futuristic Coliseum type game where you like it was just the game was amazing, but it was like you could lose on like the second turn of the game and be done. You know, it was just one of those things where it's like, and then everybody else played. It was, but I remember I loved the game, and so when I thought Coliseum, I was thinking gladiators and what have you, and it turns out it wasn't. Now, I alluded to this in the gameplay portion, so I apologize for kind of rehashing that. But so like when I cracked the game open the first time, I was like, all right, let's check this out, you know. And that was back when I was really mostly an Ameritrash gamer. I wasn't really touching Euros very often, and I started reading the rules, and I was like, well, where's the blood? You know, where's the swords? Where's the nets and the you know? So, and it wasn't in there, right? So I put it back on the shelf. You know, I was just kind of like, well, whatever, you know. And so I kind of got a little bit disenfranchised with the game. It was like, well, why would you take this cool theme about gladiators and Colosseum and chariot races and all these things, you know, fighting lions, and make this kind of dull victory point game, you know? And so I hadn't really figured out like the how cool some of these Euros were that I didn't know about. And so then, like, you fast forward about a year, and there it's sitting on my shelf still. It's been punched. It's sitting there. And I finally played it. It was one of those things where it's like somebody had mentioned it, some gaming group guy that like I didn't really know, friend of a friend type of thing. He was like, "Oh wow, you have Coliseum. I really like that. Let's play it." And I was like, "All right, you know." And then we sat down and played it. He taught the game, and his name's Paul. And like I was like, this is kind of fun, you know. It was kind of cool, you know, moving the little senators around and everything like that, and you know, just, you know, trying to like set yourself up and like collecting all these little coins. And I really like games with auctions. I've always liked games with auctions. I like the whole idea of, you know, having to spend a resource, a variable amount of a resource to get something in return. And so trying to figure out, is it worth me spending 10? Is it worth me spending 12? That sort of thing. Is it worth me just to say, hey, I'll pay 15 for this? You know, not even like going with the whole I'll bid 8, you know, just you know, jumping the gun right away. And so I liked that aspect about it. And then that's when this game became one of the like mainstays of when I just like, we would have our Arkham Horror Nights, you know, but there were our Euro evenings, and Coliseum was something that we played a lot of, and it's something that I really enjoyed. Now fast forward a little bit further, and then all of a sudden it was like one of those things where it's like, God, I mean, there's just always tons of copies. And Days of Wonder actually used to have a yearly Christmas sale, I think it was. And one of the deals they had was if you bought like 2 games, they threw in a copy of Coliseum for free. And I was just like, that just blew my mind that like the game that's really good was, they were just like giving away copies of it as long as you bought 2 other games. And but I think it was just when it was oversaturated and people just didn't really know about how good it was. And it's somewhere along those lines, somebody offered me a trade for it. I don't remember what it was. They was one of those things where it was like, they, you know, like maybe an offer like for this game or that game. I couldn't tell you what it was to save my life. I suppose I could look at my history of my trades in BGG if I didn't try to dig it up, but I traded it away. And it was like one of those things, well, you know, it's like, gosh, you know, the game's good, but I mean, everybody's got it. There's like hundreds of copies out there, you know, what the heck. And so, you know, I was just like, that's fine. I can always pick it up again if I really want it. And whatever the person was offering me, it was like something I really wanted. So I went ahead with the trade. Now, fast forward to like that point where you start like looking at stuff and you're like putting orders together. And like I noticed that like Coliseum was like the copies were drying up. You know, instead of like people having 20 copies, they had like 3. And some places had like 1. But they were charging like full MSRP for it. So then all of a sudden I realized, holy cow, you know, this game's kind of, you know, vanishing on me. And so I remember I dug and I dug and I dug. I spent like 2 or 3 days cruising the web trying to find. I remember I finally found a copy, like some weird, out of place, you know, online game store type of situation. And you know, I remember, but they, you know, it wasn't like, you know, 40% off like you normally find, 3% off, whatever. It was something where I was like, instead of like $60, it was like $45. But I was like, that's the best deal I'm going to get. So I remember I picked it up, bought it, and I was glad to have the copy. And then like I said, I played it a few times since. Now, of course, it dried up. And then this was a game that I get contacted from people that are like, I see you have a copy, or do you want to trade it? No, I just, who knows if they're going to reprint it or whatever. And so, obviously, it was one of those things where it's like, when I heard about the reprint, if you have a rare game, there's two things that happen when you hear about the reprint. One, you say, oh, I could have sold it, for like, whatever, like $100 or whatever, or I could have traded it for like some other couple, 2, 3 rare games or whatever. But the other half, you're kind of glad that like a game that is good is gonna like, then there's this group of people, there's people that are like, and obviously our board game world is increasing, the number of people that are enjoying it and being interested in this designer board game world that we inhabit. Like, now they're going to have a chance to play this game. Instead of, like, it's like this, like, oh, have you ever heard of Coliseum? Yeah, it's a really good game. Oh, too bad. You can't play it. Just like, it's something that, like, instead of, like, it's something where you have to track down a friend or a friend's copy just to get a chance to play it, now you're going to be able to own a copy. And I think that's cool that TMG's bringing it back. I know, like, the art is changing, and I saw it, I like it. I dig it. I'm looking forward to having both, like, this copy and, like, the other copy, and having both on my shelf. I'm kind of a collector in that way. And, and I dig the different spin that they've taken on it. So I think that'll be nice. But now, that's my little story about it. It's kind of like, it's always kind of cool to see like the ebb and flow of board games, and like how they they come vogue, if you will, and then they kind of like drift off, and then like they kind of just slowly vanish. And you have to kind of, if you want a copy, you have to get it before that slowly vanish part, because like, there's that moment where, they might have done a print run of like 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 copies, and right around when there's like 300 left in the wild or so, you need to snag one right then, because of the fact right before it goes. And I do believe that like if a game's good, it'll get reprinted. I mean, there's obviously, aberrations to that rule just because of weird ownership rights and copyright rights and like, designers who have passed away and things like that have made things. But look, Manila got a reprint, so I mean, things can happen, the worm can turn on certain situations, and they can have those done. I mean, like, for example, I mean, like Pillars of the Earth. Is that ever going to see a reprint? Who knows? I mean, it's just like, so I'm glad I own a copy. So, like, there's certain games that, like, I'm glad I own copies, but I also pull for those games to get reprints just because of the fact that, I applaud the game companies that go out and find those out-of-print games. And because how many times have people had the discussion, it's like, it's a license to print money. If you just get the game and you make 2,000 copies, you're going to sell them. You're sitting on a gold mine, that kind of thing. And I mean, I don't understand the board game world. I don't know how that works. I don't know if it's cost-effective to do that or whatever. But, I mean, I'm glad when somebody steps up to the plate and does it. And Taste Missile Games has done it. There's tons of other game companies that have done the same thing. Stronghold Games, for that matter. Things like that. I mean, it's just like they've realized there's a market for it, and they've stepped up and they've gone ahead and done it. But anyway, so what do I like about Coliseum? It's just like I said, it's just a very tight game. I mean, it's like it's a game, as I mentioned, that you never feel like you have enough time. If Coliseum lasted 8 rounds, the game wouldn't be as good, because of the fact that you'd always just kind of be climbing the ladder. And like the best games are when like you've kind of figured out your engine, to like earn your points. The best games are when that engine is just starting to click. It's just starting to roll. And the game ends. Because of the fact that you don't need to, like, once your engine is rolling and you're getting those victory points, you don't need to keep cranking on the engine for it to keep spitting out points and to see who's, it's just, it's like you get to that point right when, you're at that level, and then the game ends. Because then that's what it is. It's the build-up that matters. And I love the fact that, like I said, you never seem to have enough choices. It's like, do I want to expand my Colosseum? Do I want, to have the Emperor's Lodge? It's like, then they have those things where it's like, well, if I don't put, Emperor's Lodge in now, I mean, it's like, is it worth it once it's like the 3rd turn to like be able to roll an extra die? Is it really gonna be worth it? Should I do something else with my time in that situation? It's like, also, like, the auction and the bidding things, I mean, when you, like, play your cards, and basically you collect, since everything's open knowledge, when you collect an event that you need X, and, whatever, you need 4 ships and, 3 comedians or whatever, you need those things, and everybody knows you need those. And so the bidding process can be very, it can have a lot of teeth, if you will, because people are going to outbid you just for the purpose of taking them from you, and just so they can have them too when you start doing the trades. I love the fact that they have a trade in there where you can give those events, like, yeah, I don't need these tiles, but it's going to cost you. Yeah, I know I outbid you by 5 to get it, but now's the time when you're going to start paying me that, and you're going to give me those 2 tiles that I want right over there too. And so it's. I love the fact that it isn't completely free and crazy trading, which I think would kind of maybe break this game a little bit. But I love the fact that, like, it is that, because it adds the human element. It adds my ability, because it has a rule, says now you can do trading, but it allows the players to set the prices and set the bargain and go through that process. And I think that's really good that they do it like that. I mean, there's one thing to play a game that has like a set rule, and this is what you do in this part, this is what you do in this part, this is what you do in this part. But when you say, okay, now trade, and now have like this kind of open market, if you will, that's when, like, you start actually, like, playing other people against each other, playing other players against each other. It's like, no, don't buy it from him. I'll sell it to you for less. That kind of thing. And I like that, and I like the fact that they added that phase. I mean, yes, this is a game where you're basically collecting resources, and you're turning those resources into points. I mean, that's just the process. But I mean, it has enough difference to it, enough bite to it, that this isn't what I call a garden game. And so I enjoy those types of games that actually let me be just a little bit of a jerk when it comes time to going through the process of the turn, and, like, not only putting on the best event possibly that I can do, but also having, like, my finger in your pie as well, and ruining it by maybe not letting you have all the, like, the event tokens that you need to complete what you wanted to do. Things like that. I mean, I like it. I like the scoring of it. I like moving these little dudes around the table. I mean, it's just kind of fun to see that whole process go through. And the fact is that, like, since you're both moving them back and forth and adjusting them, like, you're kind of willy-nilly. It's like that's also a lot of fun, because of the fact that, like, you are trying to, like, get them into the right spot, for you to put on your events and whatever. And, like, sometimes it'll be, like, beneficial for you just not so much to get one on your spot, but just move one past another player, because they go around the table. Yes, you can use these tiles to move them back, but you can get them and move them away from the other player, and it's like, sorry, I'm not gonna get those points. And I like that. I mean, just because you can't possibly get a consul or an emperor or whatever to your particular Colosseum, you can still prevent points from somebody else, and that's just as good, right? I mean, it's like you're not letting them get points, and because of the fact that this isn't a game where each person just keeps adding and adding and adding on to their total, it's just like, it's whoever puts on the best possible event. You could be in last place the entire time, but if you can get that perfect tiles and the perfect markers and everything all in the right time, and that last turn, and you put on the best possible event, some big giant huge chariot race or whatever, and you pull it off, you're gonna win. And I love that. I love that, the fact that the game doesn't, the scoring mechanism in this game, top notch. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. So there you go. So that's Coliseum. Like I said, it's tough to get a hold of the Old Days of Wonder copy, but like I said, I know there's a Kickstarter coming up very soon. So maybe that's something you want to look into. I don't know. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But if you are looking for this kind of timeless classic, I mean, and it is. This is like one of those classic early Euros that, like, is like, right before the big so to speak board game boom. I think you're really going to enjoy this one. I mean, it's got enough different out there that plays differently than other, like, Euro games of this genre, that it's going to take a nice good place on your shelf, and you're not going to want to replace it anytime soon. And you'll be upset with yourself if you trade it away, because then it goes out of print, then you can't find it, and what have you. So anyway, so there you go. If you have any questions about Colosseum, please post away. I'll be happy to answer those to the best of my ability. As always, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. And until next time, I'm the Undead Viking. I'm telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. All right, bye-bye.